Hello. Thanks for tuning in. I believe I had an episode of Mania recently, and I want to talk about it. First of all, while I have a diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder, it's the depressive type, not the bipolar type, so there's no reason I should experience an episode of mania at all. That is, if my diagnosis is correct. We'll get to that later. I should also note that I'm in the process of changing antidepressants right now from venlafaxine, or Effexor, to sertraline, or Zoloft. Venlafaxine is an SNRI, so a serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor, and sertraline is an SSRI, so a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. Sertraline was actually my first psychiatric med, so feels like home, I guess. No, it doesn't. It feels new still, but anyway, I just wanted to put that disclaimer in there. Okay, let's talk. So on the morning, I had the Manic episode. This happened about last week now, so it's been about a week. I've had a week to reflect on it, but that morning I felt off. Upon waking up, I just felt kind of off. It was a normal morning, but I just didn't feel normal, I guess. I felt off. I mentioned it to my partner. He said later, he told me that he was worried about me because I really did seem off. More so than normal, I guess. Yeah, I always seem off, I guess. No. My partner later reported that I did in fact seem off, and he was worried about me. So I arrived at work for my 7:20 start time, and around 8:15 or so, from what I remember, I started slipping into mania. So the reason I feel like it was probably mania, I suspect it was mania, is because it felt like how I've heard people describe mania before. I even looked up, what does mania feel like? Came up with a list of a description that fit couple descriptions, obviously, but a lot of the symptoms fit what I was experiencing. And none of the symptoms I was experiencing didn't come up. I wrote down how I was feeling because my partner actually told me to. I called him and he said, just write down what you're feeling, talk to your psychiatrist, tell her, because, with the med change, I'm keeping up to date with her, having regular check-ins, and she's wondering how I'm doing, so I will be telling her about this. Okay, so how did I feel? I felt like I had 20 cups of coffee, or like just an excessive amount of coffee, even though I had only drank one coffee in the morning, like I usually do every morning. I felt jittery beyond belief, actually. I felt jittery before because of my medication, but this was like really jittery. My mind was racing. I felt like I wouldn't need sleep for a very long time, at least not for like the whole day. And usually at work, because of my medication, possibly my age, I don't know, but probably because of my medication and my illness, I need sleep actually during the day. I take a nap at work on a break time, like lunch or a break or whatever. I felt very awake. I felt so energized, from all the coffee that I didn't drink. I felt overwhelmed. I don't know with what, but I felt overwhelmed and a bit irritable. I felt wired. Like I just had all the energy in the world and I just wanted to like work. Good, just go. I felt weirdly out of sync with time, like as if I was moving too quickly and time wasn't catching up, or time was moving too slowly, like it had slowed down or something, So around 8:45, after I looked up what mania felt like, I called my partner, as I mentioned, and he told me then to write down what I was feeling, so I wrote it all down, and that was the list I gave you. He also told me later that I seemed really amped up and rather irritable, and I was cutting him off mid-sentence, apparently. I don't really remember much. I know that he was not getting to the point fast enough. So I was cutting him off. He told me to try deep breathing. And when I attempted this over the phone, he just said, that's fast breathing. It's kind of funny, actually, like not in the moment, but it's funny now that I think about it. Cause he's like, just deep breathe. And I was like, and he's like, that's fast breathing. So then he suggested I try to get fresh air, because he wasn't sure it was mania at the time. He's like, we don't know that yet, just see if fresh air helps. So I stepped outside and I was jumping around. Like I was just jumping up and down all over the place. And then I was like swinging my arms around a whole bunch. And then I stopped and I got myself to stand there. And I got bored so quickly. I was like, this is boring. I need to go back to work. So I just went back to work and I was working. So I called him back and I was like, well, that didn't work. And he said, try to take a nap. Just try to turn off the lights, put your head down. So I did that. And I turned off the lights in my office. I closed the door. I put my head on my desk and I forced myself to just sit there doing nothing, just not moving, just sitting there. closing my eyes. After what felt like a very long time, I fell asleep. And when I awoke, I felt completely and utterly drained, more drained than I have felt in a very long time. I felt like I had absolutely no energy left. I was spent. I felt like I was getting sick, in fact. So I think at that point I had come down. I'm sure at that point my manic episode had ended. So during this episode, I didn't feel worried about myself. Like I was like, I don't know what to do with this because I think this is mania. But I wasn't like worried. I was just kind of like more so curious than anything. And that is pretty on par for me. I did actually believe that if anybody came across me at work, I would appear crazy, overly hyper, and they might be very concerned. So I avoided people in general. I actually luckily didn't run into anybody in the hallway or anything. Nobody stopped to try to talk to me in my office or anything like that. So that's really good because I was thinking I would appear like crazy, wild, just wild. So I wonder if I was more curious than concerned because of the nature of my illness. So you might feel this too if you experience psychosis on a like semi-regular basis, like if you have a psychotic disorder, because basically things are weird a lot of the time, especially when you're like not medicated or when you are changing medication or when your medication under medicated kind of thing, or when your medication isn't working. Things are weird a lot of the time. Things get weird. It's not like you embrace it, and you don't expect it either, but you just face it with curiosity. You're kind of like, oh, this is weird. What's this? What's going on here? What is that? Is that normal? Is that new? That's new. You know, that kind of thing. I just seem to have developed a curiosity towards strange things instead of like concern immediately. Whereas my partner is the opposite. He was concerned immediately. I mentioned before, I might have the wrong diagnosis. I said, if I have the right diagnosis. My partner actually suggested the idea that I might have been misdiagnosed just by accident because he said maybe you have schizoaffective disorder bipolar type and the medication you were on was keeping the symptoms at bay, especially like the mania symptoms at bay, you know, because I was on meds that managed my symptoms wonderfully, actually. The only reason I'm changing is because I would like to get pregnant and I want the baby to be as safe as possible. Yeah, I realize that psych meds are not completely like safe for unborn babies. I need the meds. And my partner is a man and can't carry the babies for me. So I need to change meds, basically. So my partner was thinking that maybe the med change kind of allowed the mania or, you know, other symptoms to kind of like break through the cracks. So we did agree that if it happens again, I'll get put on a cancellation list to talk to my psychiatrist. I do have an appointment at the end of February to catch up with her about how the sertraline adjustment is, how I'm handling the sertraline adjustment, how my brain and body are handling it. Anyway, I just wanted to say that I'm not surprised I was diagnosed with the depressive type because I was showing a lot of depressive symptoms and a lot of psychosis and like schizophrenia symptoms because, you know, schizophrenia and depression and not the mania. So, you know, if it is like a misdiagnosis by accident, it would be totally accidental, like I said, and it's nobody's fault. Health conditions, they change, they evolve, I guess. They get worse sometimes. Sometimes they get better. This is chronic mental illness. It is managed. It can be kept at bay, but it doesn't really like go into remission. I wouldn't call it going into remission, and it doesn't get like healed, and it doesn't get cured. There's no cure. You just live with it. You manage it, right? It's like, I don't know, diabetes. Nobody cures diabetes, but you manage it. You live with it. So let me know what you think. If you have thoughts on whether or not this was mania, let me know. If you've experienced mania, feel free to sound off in the comments. I don't usually get comments on my videos, but if you feel like commenting, please do. As always, thank you for watching. I appreciate all 50 of you, and I'll see you when I see you.